All praises to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai, Ba'Shem Makar. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, and Shalom to the elect of the nation of Israel. This is going to be a lesson going into how the Lord, Yahweh, is going to make the laws be made honourable in this world, which as it stands right now, Yahweh's laws are made illegal, right? This world has made Yahweh's laws illegal to follow, right? It's actually illegal to act out the full judgments of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai in this wicked society that we're living in, man. But I'm going to read this scripture here. This is Isaiah chapter 42 and verse 1. The Lord Yahweh is well pleased for his righteousness' sake. He will magnify the law and make it honorable, right? So the Lord Yahweh is one day going to make his laws honorable in this world, man, because his laws and his way has never been wrong, right? There's never been nothing wrong with the ways that Yahweh has set out for us to live as Israelites. This is Psalm 19 and verse 7. The law of Yahweh is perfect, converting the soul. The testimony of Yahweh is sure, making wise the simple. The statutes of Yahweh are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of Yahweh is pure, enlightening the eyes. So the statutes and the laws of Yahweh, right, are exactly the same. Like I've always been the same, and that's always been the best way to live on earth, man. But we haven't kept them, and the heathen don't want to keep them, man. But Yahweh is one day gonna make that be the ultimate way to live on earth. And let me read this. This is Deuteronomy chapter 10 and verse 12. And now Israel, what does Yahweh thy power require of thee, but to fear Yahweh thy power, to walk in all his ways, and to love him, and to serve Yahweh thy power with all thy heart and with all thy soul, to keep the commandments of Yahweh and his statutes which are commanded this day for thy good, because it's a good thing to keep these ways, right? Because when we kept them ways, we would be blessed. And when we didn't keep those ways, we would be cursed, man. And there's only one way or the other. We're either in a cursed state or we're in a blessed state, man. And as it even stands right now, even still now to this day, right now, we're still cursed, right? But the time's going to come where we're going to be blessed, man. And that blessing is going to be caused by the way how we're going to be living. Thanks to Yahweh Shai changing us so that we can live according to Yahweh's laws. And when that happens, this scripture here is going to also be fulfilled. Deuteronomy chapter 4 and verse 5. Behold, I have taught you statutes and judgments, even as Yahweh my power commanded me, that you should do so in the land whither ye go to possess it. Keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations, which shall hear all these statutes and say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. And people ain't saying that about the Israelites right now. They think that Esau has got the wise and understanding ways, which people are starting to look at him for the scumbag that he is right now. But some people still trust in the way that he sets out that the world should be lived. They just got a problem with him. They ain't necessarily got a problem with the ways that he set out for people to live. They ain't got a problem with his stock market. They ain't got a problem with his unfair balances. They ain't got a problem with his transhumanism. They ain't got a problem with the payment methods that he's trying to design on the world. They've just got a problem with him and how he is as a person. But they ain't got a problem with the philosophies and with the wine that he's pushing out. They just want to kick him out and rule the world that he's tried to make. That's what these people want to do. Verse 7. For what nation is there so great that have Yahweh so nigh unto them, as Yahweh our power is in all things that we call upon him for? There ain't no nation. Verse 8. And what nation is there so great that have statutes and judgments so righteous as all this law, which are set before you this day? And again, there ain't no nation, right? There ain't no nation that has that. And that's why when we are under the new covenant, and when we're able to keep all the laws of Yahweh properly and perfectly, that law, the law, is going to be made honorable. Isaiah chapter 42 and verse 21. Yahweh is well pleased for righteousness' sake. He will magnify the law and make it honorable. Whereas right now, in this world right now, it's not honorable, man. And let me read it about how in the final days, in fact, let me go to it in Micah 4. I always go to the one in Isaiah. Let me go to this one for a change. This is Micah chapter 4 and verse 1. But in the last days it shall come to pass that the mountain of Yahweh, that the mountain of the house of Yahweh shall be established in the top of the mountains, and it shall be exalted above the hills, and people shall flow unto it, and many nations shall come and say, Come and let us go up to the mountain of Yahweh, and to the house of the God of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For the law shall go forth of Zion, and the word of Yahweh from Jerusalem. And in that day when that's happening, that's the day that the law is going to be made honorable, because people are going to know if they don't follow it, they're going to be punished according to it. And they're going to see how it's how that laws and how the change that Yahweh Shai gave us has been able to beautify and perfect us, so that they can't find any flaw in us. They ain't going to be able to find a flaw or a judgment or a point of controversy in anything that we say or in anything that we do, because we're going to be following Yahweh's laws perfectly in that day. Whereas right now people can say, oh, you say this about that, but look what you're doing. But in that day, they ain't going to be able to say nothing about us. Verse 3, and he shall judge among the nations, and shall rebuke strong nations afar off, letting you know further that salvation ain't for everybody, man. Because if every single nation was going to be under the new covenant, there wouldn't be no need for strong nations afar off to be rebuked, because they'd all be keeping all the laws. And it lets you know also that the judgments are on a nation to nation basis. It's not just an individual thing, right? It's an individual thing for the Israelites, but it's a nation thing for the heathen. There ain't going to be no Edomite that was a good Edomite, right? That's going to be like to the rest of the Edomites, I told you, we should have lived, did the right thing. You could have been where I'm at now. That's not going to be there. He's going to be right there with him. Because there's no such thing as a good heathen, right? There's no such thing, man. They're all programmed to be against Yahweh's laws. Verse 3 again, and he shall judge among the people and rebuke strong nations afar off, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. So there we have it, man. They ain't gonna be doing that no more, right? And that's gonna be made active once we're under the new covenant, so that we cannot be hypocrites for telling the heathen to keep the law when we wouldn't, if we ain't keeping it perfectly ourselves. But when we're under the new covenant, we're going to be able to tell them to keep the laws, because we're going to be keeping it perfectly ourselves. Hebrews chapter 8 and verse 10, which I read this scripture like several times anyway, but yet still, if you ask the average person that's about the Bible, if we're under the new covenant, they will say yes. Even certain Israelites, man, if you ask them if they're under the new covenant, they'll say yeah, but then they're sinning and going off, and they're teaching. But if you're under the new covenant, that would mean that every single other Israelite is also under the new covenant, and you wouldn't have to teach them, man. But anyway, Hebrews chapter 8 and verse 10. For this is the covenant that I'll make with the house of Israel after those days, saith Yahweh. I'll put my laws into their mind and write them in their hearts, and I'll be to them a God, and they shall be to me a people. So there we have it, man. That's what the new covenant is. Verse 11, and they shall teach, and they shall not teach every man his neighbor, every Israelite man teaching his Israelite neighbor, and every man his brother, every Israelite man teaching his Israelite brother or his Israelite sister, saying know the Lord, Yahweh, which is their God, right? The God of the Israelites. For all shall know me, all Israelites, from the least Israelite to the greatest Israelite, meaning those that was of the elect or those that was not of the elect, because those that were not of the elect are always going to come back. Don't the scriptures say, and so all Israel shall be saved? Verse 12, for I'll be merciful to their unrighteousness, and their sins and their iniquities will I remember no more. Meaning that the Israelites are going to be forgiven ultimately for all the wickedness that they've did, man. And the only difference between an Israelite of the elect and an Israelite that's a 2/3 Israelite that's going to get destroyed is the fact that Yahweh justified the sins of one and didn't justify the sins of another. And that's according to Romans, the 8th chapter, from like the 28th verse to the end of the chapter, man. And on that, I'm going to say all praises to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai, Ba'Shem Makar, double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, and Shalom to the nation of Israel. Shalom.